Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Anton. Magandang gabi sa inyo lahat. Ako po si Christ Urbano.
Yes, good evening to all the people watching on the live stream and especially watching on the replay. We have a very special wine tasting session with the Christ Urbano from Winery.PH. So if you wanted to learn more about wines and we'll be tasting 3 wines and there's a wine clearance coming up with Winery.PH. These are part of it, and we want to get to know the wines, and especially for this Father's Day, diba, Chris? Happy Father's Day to all the people watching on this live stream, and so we'll be tasting this just in time for Father's Day. Also, Chris, how many kids do you have?
Tatlo na. So I'm a father as well, and it's quite good being in the wine industry as a parent because when the kids can be very active. I mean, my children now, yung panganay ko is 6 years old, so you can imagine the other two are younger than that. So I'm in that crazy time, and when they all go to bed at night, it's time to have a glass of wine. Most nights of the week. So, buti naman yung negosyo ko ay Winery.PH. And I have a broad selection that I can taste on a regular basis. But we had a Father's Day sale. We picked up, we were selling actually Belgian beers. That did very nicely. I bought myself a 24 pack of Belgian beers. My kids don't have a credit card yet, so I had to buy the gift for myself.
All right. So we have four boys. You need to catch up one more. Huh?
Oh, you have 4. I think the last time I saw you it was 2 or 3. But you just start to lose count. I mean, shout out to everyone here who's like 35 plus, right? You just lose count. There's another one comes along. After 2, who's counting?
Yes. And so guys, please join us in our discussion, or if you have questions, you want to do some shout out, please do. My name is Anton Diaz, founder of Our Awesome Planet, and we're having an awesome live chat with Christ Urbano, a wine tasting session tonight. All right, thank you. And we're here talking to thank you for talking to All right, Chris. Maybe let's start first with an introduction of Winery.PH and introduce the business.
Sure. So I've been selling wine in the Philippines since about 2014. When I first started, I was I used to be a corporate guy, and I came to the Philippines, wanted to start a business, and I thought dumadami na yung mga interests sa wine dito sa Pilipinas. People are starting to transition from beer to either premium beer or to liquor or craft spirits, or they're switching into wine. That whole premiumization of drinks in the Philippines has been going on for a while. So I hope I got in early enough into the wine game. And the other thing that was happening at the time was e-commerce. Maybe we're not so big as now with COVID, but even 3 or 4 years ago, you can tell it's just a few years away, and maybe we were ahead of the curve. But I really believed in the e-commerce opportunity in the Philippines, that it was only a matter of time. So Winery, the website, actually kicked off in 2017. Prior to that, I'd been like importing a bit of wine, trying to sell it like the old-fashioned way.
Yeah,
you remember, and I was doing my YouTube back then as well, maputing cooking. So I despite being a businessman, I love food and wine. So I was doing my cooking show, making Filipino food and pairing the wines to it. But we really got going in 2017. I got a few other partners into the business, so my pera na to really build out the website and to put in place the initial team and increase the range. Oh, you've brought up my there we go. you found my YouTube channel. Apparently, I think I just passed 60,000 followers, even though I haven't posted a video since COVID-19. It's just been crazy. So, pasensya na sa mga kabano, if you're watching now. I haven't forgotten about you guys. It's just been a very crazy time in my life with kids and work to keep on making cooking videos. But I'm hoping we'll start to do a little bit more again this year, and more and more on the food and wine side. So I was since 2017 we started to really get serious with it. We started to talk to a lot of the other wine importers who are all looking for a way to sell directly online to consumers. The supermarket, medyo maliit yung range nila, mataas yung presyo, and syempre naman, if you want to be listed in yung mga Rustans, yung mga SM, may bayad dyan, diba? You have to pay the listing fee, the shelf space fee, and it just makes the wine more expensive than it needs to be kung i-compare sa yung e-commerce where we're just really got this in an air-conditioned warehouse. We put it in a box and we put it on a motorbike and bring it over, right? So we can actually price things cheaper, make wine more affordable for the Filipino. So one of our mottos at WineryPH is we're here for vino for the Filipino. That's what we're about. Helping that next 10 million Filipinos who are really starting to get interested in the category to have a very safe way, an affordable way to try and enjoy wine. So that's where we're at now. All right. I think we're now the biggest seller of wine online in the country. That's what everyone's telling us. So go
congratulations. Yes, go winery.ph. So let's start. So what are we tasting first? What are we tasting first?
So we have three things we're gonna work through today, and all of these are available in our big clearance sale at the end of this month, where we sell good wine for up to 57% off, which is crazy in a category like this. You can't, if it's 99% off, don't buy it. Like, it's not Shopee, right? It's 99% off. There's something wrong with it when it comes to wine. 57 is a really, really big discount. So everything tonight's from that sale. But the first one is going to be a Australian Pinot Grigio. Do you have you had the picture before? That's what the bottle looks like. Do you have the image? There it is. So this is from Australia, even though Pinot Grigio is normally a variety that is known from northern Italy, but there's a lot of Italian migrants in Australia. We have a lot of the same climates. So we grow Pinot Grigio there as well. And this is one of my favorite wines. We import this one directly. And no reason to sell it down other than the fact that we've got another container on the way. So we thought we'd throw it in the sale. So it's 3 years old. It's what we call a dry white wine, which means it's hindi sobrang matamis. Very clean, crisp flavor, and nice. We say yung acidity, or yung parang gaano ka. Anong tawag dyan yung acidity?
Ano nga sa Tagalog ang acidity?
Parang, I don't want to say suka because it's like not vinegar, but like gaano ka acidic is the wine. It's a higher acidity wine, so it's very nice for pairing with foods that are a little bit fatty, because it has an acidity that will balance it out. So you've had a little taste. Maybe given it's our first one, Anton, I'll give a little primer on the approach to tasting the wine in the glass, and for the benefit of our audience. So wine 101. The basic
wine
is
101.
We call it the 5S approach to tasting. So first you pour the wine, usually up to the widest part of the glass. You will have a look at the color. So this color would be probably considered a pale straw by the color, like, just hint of yellow in there, very pale. The next thing we'll do is we will sniff the wine. So the second S is to sniff. And you can put your nose in. I'll kind of go in profile so you can see how far I put my nose in. And you want to sniff quite deeply to get the aroma. Now, the next step is swirl. So it's usually easy to put the glass flat on the table when you rotate it, because if you're unbalanced, you can spill the wine quite easily. So flat on the table, vigorously swirl it, and then you might go back for another sniff, and that will help release the bouquet of the wine. So the second time, hopefully the smell is a bit more stronger, more intense, after you've swirled it around. And then the fourth step is the sip. And I suggest to take quite a full sip, but then really circulate it. So when I do virtual wine tastings, I always say, imagine you're, nasa dentist ka na, mamumog ka. When they say mamumog ka yung mouthwash
Mumog,
afterwards, that tumumog around your mouth. And when I went to the dentist and they would say mumog, I was like, I've always needed to know that word because I'm in the wine industry in the Philippines. Now, it's not a word they teach you in school, to vigorously circulate liquid in your mouth to mumog. So you want to really swish it around. The idea is to get the wine to cover your gums, all the parts of your tongue. And the wine, a good wine, will taste a little bit different in those different places. Kasi siyempre man yung lengua natin, may iba't ibang zone siya. You taste the sweet in one area, taste the sour in another area, taste the bitter in another area. So the wine, as you circulate it, allows you to appreciate lahat yung mga lasa niya. And then you swallow the wine, and then the last S is to savor it, which is to sort of maybe contemplate kung anong lasa dyan, yung isip kung anong mga dyan, or maybe it's to appreciate the finish. So usually the wine, you can still taste it for a few seconds, particularly the red wines, 10 or 20 seconds. You can still taste the wine and sort of enjoy that lingering taste. Parang, mabagal siya mawala on your palate, especially a big red wine. This will disappear quite quickly, being a light white wine.
So parang it's
yeah. So the 5 S's would be the see, sniff, swirl, you can sniff it again, and then sip, and then savor. And that was my mumog for everybody to see, my mumog sa bibig ko.
And this one usually goes with what type of food?
So because of I said it was quite acidic, so it can handle, you kind of want to serve it with salads, but with cheese, so vegetables and cheese. Those are the kind of two things. Seafood will work as well, but one of the first things I'd look at doing with this would be like a salad with alam mo ba yung parang halloumi cheese or feta cheese, yung parang those and a salad with maybe a few walnuts in it, a little bit of fruit. This will go very well. It's kind of peachy, it's kind of citrusy. That's the flavors I get. And if you're thinking about a salad like a peach and feta, peach and halloumi would be nice. It would work with baked mussels. Think about baked with konting bawang, parsley, queso in the mussels because of the acidity and the cheese would be quite good together. Filipino pairing, hard.
It's hard, no? Filipino food.
One of the things comes to mind, maybe it's more like Mexican with this, like a fish taco. Alam mo ba yung like a real taco where they put a bit of snapper in there or something like that, and you've got the citrus on it. That's probably what I would look at for this, but that's like a bit more out of the sort of Mexican field than the Filipino, but close. Close to
maybe kilawin, probably not, no? Kilawin or
so it would depend how you make it, because the wine's quite acidic. So actually, yes, I would say you can do this with kilawin. But I would change the way, and this is where it helps to be like maputing cooking as well. I'm like qualified to say this. We'd probably look at lowering the amount of suka in the kilawin. And it would have to be a coconut milk, like a may gata. Some you put gata, some you don't put gata. If you're gonna do kilawin, less suka, more gata. And then you could actually pair this. And probably the fish I would use would be like a tangige. Probably not tuna, but tangige would be my pick. Yeah.
All right. Good.
Yeah,
so Lasona from Pinot Grigio 2018.
Pinot Grigio 2018. And I think that it's normally about $10.90, but these will all be like nearly 50% off. So bargain.
Wow. Really good bargain.
What next? More wine or more cuento?
No, more wine, more wine. I like your wines. So, what happened during the pandemic for you?
So it was sort of it was mixed. Um, Look, we all suddenly woke up and suddenly it's ECQ
Mm-hmm.
and you can't go out. And the first thing everybody did was run out and buy alcohol, right? Because they're like,
Sure.
who knows how long this is, what else are you going to do, right? How long is this going to go on for? I think everyone checked their cupboard and their fridge and checked how much alcohol they had and said, that's not enough. So, I mean, for us as a business, the 2 weeks after ECQ was first announced, like, ang taas yung mga benta namin sa online, especially given a lot of the supermarkets had closed, the traditional stores had closed, and everyone was just desperate for any alcohol they could get. But the hard thing was most of the importers, most of the wholesalers, they were all shutting their warehouses. They weren't opening their doors because they couldn't get the staff to work. So we have like this explosion of sales, and then like it's really hard to get more wine, onto the shelves, so to speak, in our fulfillment center. Now, because we're actually very well operated in terms of our e-commerce, we never ran out of products to sell because fortunately, Winery, we work with over 35 importers, and there were a couple of guys like opening their warehouse, like, send a truck here, get the alcohol to the fulfillment center so we could sell it online and get it to customers. And there were a few like owners of these importers who were personally going and like, unlocking the warehouse so that we could just get a truck. And it's like, we'll sort out the paperwork later. We just have to keep selling because there's a demand here that, and people can't get to the product otherwise. So it was sort of a really, really crazy time from operations. And then, syempre my actual risk of COVID-19, natatakot yung lahat ng mga empleyado namin. They're terrified. I mean, of course, you could get it. There's these posters, COVID-19, may some case dito sa San Juan. And actually, we believe most of our team was infected with COVID-19 in April of last year. We had a suspicious number of people with COVID symptoms. Wala pang test. You couldn't get a test at the time. So,
at the time.
And I think a lot of Filipinos probably had COVID last year and don't know about it because you had a
Definitely,
test for minor symptoms. So that was kind of crazy in terms of, everybody's scared where it's like boom time online, but people don't want to come to work. They don't want to man the delivery trucks. Then you have the MMDA and the soldiers out there who, are they helping or not? A lot of checkpoints and, that all of that sort of stuff where it's, you have to find a solution, right? I mean, the Philippines is the land of the creative solution. So we got through it. And then after a while, we suddenly turned to liquor bans. So we go from selling heaps and heaps of alcohol, and then suddenly it's like and then liquor ban in Quezon City. The sales go back to we get hammered when there's a liquor ban. Siyempre, yun ang benta namin, alcoholic beverage. So we're trying to navigate that, and you're trying to stay in business, and your sales one day is really high, the next day is nothing, and so that's why it's been a very, very crazy year for us, Anton. But overall, look, we're an e-commerce company first and foremost, and I will say that I think we won a lot of new customers last year because kahit ECQ, kahit GCQ, kahit anong Q, nandun yung winery, and never affected yung operations namin. In fact, we never dropped below a 97% on time in full delivery rate.
Wow.
Even during ECQ, even when 30% of my staff were out with COVID-19, we still were above 97% on time in full deliveries. And people said to us, like, how are you guys still operating, with everything going on? Everybody else.
What's your commitment delivery time? The next day or 2 days?
So we operate on 2 business days, but we hit it every time.
Every time.
But there's a lot of, I think, cowboy sellers out there at the moment, Anton. Parang yung promise nila 2 oras lang, and then well, hindi dumating yung wine.
Yeah, it's hard to hit it. Yeah.
especially it rains or kung sobrang busy yung mga third-party logistics drivers. I mean, Lala and Grab and all of these motorcycle companies, they're like really stretched as well. So you promise your customer it's going to be there in 2 hours and it's not. I think it's better to say we operate on 2 business days with a really, really big range of products, but we never miss. And
That's good.
Yeah, I know wala po. That's what everyone hates, is that bait and switch. When you buy online and then it's like, wala po. They call you like, oh, walang coming stock, day off, day off.
I hate that.
So, I know. So that was the thing. We were like, we're never doing that to customers. We don't sell it unless we have it. And I think we do miss like one in 100, one in 200 orders, and we're gonna give that person a voucher. We're gonna give them some wine. We're gonna sort it out to a very high standard, because the Filipino deserves good wine, right? Vino for the Filipino.
Vino for the Filipino. So let's go to our second. What's our second?
Yes.
What's our second?
So the second one is this one here. Nice label. Nice. Yeah. So the brand is Torre Solar, and the type of grape we're having is a Tempranillo Syrah. In Australia, we would say Shiraz. This is the French spelling. They say Syrah.
Syrah.
And the wine comes not from France, but from Spain. And this is this comes from an area of Spain called Tierra de Castilla. So I guess the land of castles, if my Spanish is correct. And just obviously empty the glass first. If you have a spittoon, you can toss it, Anton, or you can down it. Given it's Friday night, I think you can finish the glass.
That's the idea.
You have 3 bottles there. This could get deadly if you leave this live stream on. Anything could happen. Anything could happen.
Let's see.
I mean, I think we better turn it off after the scheduled broadcast time, or this could be a reputational incident for us both. So what we have here, this area of Spain is one of their what we call a value producing area. So they produce a lot of fruit there, and they make wines. I don't want to say in bulk, but in a volume that means that they have really, really great prices. So a wine like this, and Spain is one of the best value for money countries in the world. It's one of the reasons it's very popular here. But normally you have the Rioja wine. Most people have heard of Rioja. They'll normally be around, of course. Yeah, they'll normally be around like $750 for a entry level one, maybe $1,100 or $1,200 for a good one. These wines from La Mancha will be more like starting price of $650. And when we run this in our flash deal, this will be sort of in insane mode pricing, probably down in the sort of $375, $380 or something a bottle. But they're well-made wines, and what they're doing that's really interesting here is that usually Shiraz is not, or Syrah is not grown in Spain. So what they're doing is they're taking the wine Tempranillo, and normally to make this wine more complex and higher quality, they're going to put it in barrels for a few years. Now, what they're doing here is they're blending 2 grapes to kind of make a wine with a balance and complexity and layers of flavor by blending the 2 varieties together. But because they don't then need to keep it in a barrel for several years, it's a really good price for the taste and the mouthfeel and how much you enjoy it. So we're finding that in the Philippines at the moment, these wines from these parts of Spain is really moving a lot of volume.
Which part of Spain is this?
Tierra de la Castilla, and the specific region would be La Mancha. So I think
La Mancha in the north.
It's more southern, sort of southern central.
South central.
Let's say closer to Barcelona.
Okay.
Yeah. More towards Barcelona than to Madrid, if that makes sense.
So what should this taste like?
So usually what you expect with a Tempranillo is a cherry smell, like a red cherry fruit.
Yes,
and
correct.
that's the sort of hallmark that you're drinking a Tempranillo. If you smell sort of red cherries, and then you might smell a little bit of maybe vanilla, a little bit of like pepperiness, like there's sort of a spicy cherry flavors to it. But because this has the Shiraz, it has some sort of slightly bolder fruits in it as well. You might say, a bit of ripe plum or blackberry. One of the things I'm conscious of, Anton, is a lot of Filipinos have never tasted some of these fruits. So we were actually talking about this in the office the other day. Like, how does a Filipino, relate to some of the fruits that somebody like I would say who's tasted them all. So we're actually thinking about that a lot at the moment at Winery with our team of sort of how can we bring in more like Filipino type words. And in fact, I saw a wine review the other night where the guy actually, and he was a Filipino but grew up in the US, and he said it tastes like Robitussin, the cough syrup.
Probably not a good reference.
But you know what? It's true. Like, that is actually a legitimate smell, and people are like, yeah. I mean, and if that's how you relate it to the taste, to that sort of, because it's that cherry, that like medicinal cherry smell almost. He's not saying it tastes just like cough syrup, right? But he's saying there's kind of an aroma of it. And I just thought that was really, really cool. So that's what you typically get. Maybe some leather, maybe some some spices like pepper. And if we follow the technique again, so the color, we'd call this one, I would say, garnet. It's quite opaque. So the color would just be garnet. The nose, red cherry, and I get vanilla. And then we do our swirl. You can sniff again. Have your sip. Okay. So it's kind of, I would say, fruity when you first taste it, but as you switch it around, it kind of goes a bit savory, right? Doesn't finish too sweet. It's not like drinking juice or anything. It finishes a little bit savory.
It is not. It's savory. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the description, it says sweet, no? Like juicy in the description.
Yeah.
But it's not.
So the first sensation for me is the sweet and the juicy. Yeah. Not sweet, but like a fruitiness, and then it finishes. Fruity, it finishes more on the savory note. Usually these wines you would serve with basically Spanish tapas. Like if you have just manchego or jamon. Just like a Rioja would pair. But any Spanish tapas, charcuterie, some salami, longaniza, empanadas. You could have this with even like a callos. I would even think I used to make a recipe a few years ago, which was like a longaniza rigatoni. We'd do longaniza with black beans. So it was a real like Filipino meets Chinese meets Italian, and with a bit of, and then finish it with some manchego, not parmesan, just some manchego as a pasta. And that would work well with this.
Nice. So in winery.ph, do you only sell wines, or do you sell like adjacent categories, like pika food, or no, just concentrated on wines?
So I guess we do now. When we started, it was always about wine predominantly, and we think that's the customer. Like if you're a wine lover, you should be really shopping with Winery. You're gonna find the best wine range and prices there. But of course, keep in mind, if you're gonna check out wine already, you might as well get your beer and your spirits as well. So we've started building up those collections of. But we don't want to focus on the products you can get everywhere in 7-Eleven. So, the focus is more on sort of craft Belgian beers, and in the liquors more on craft spirits. I don't think it's particularly hard to buy like San Miguel or Johnny Walker, right? You can get them in any 7-Eleven. So I think for e-commerce, it's about showcasing those products that are a bit harder to find and making them accessible. Now with the pandemic last year, we were in that situation where they're like, all right, well, are they going to ban us from delivering all the time? And, is liquor an essential good? when they were giving out permits for the, the task force saying who can operate and
So
who
what
can't.
happened? Yeah.
Well, our view is that, if you can buy alcohol in the grocery store, then it's grocery, right? But we didn't want to test that necessarily with the city enforcer or the MMDA. Like, they might have a different definition of whether this qualifies as essential. So we were like, well, let's quickly diversify the product mix and make sure that we also have a range of food, so that at least our trucks are carrying a variety of goods, just like a supermarket. So that kind of drove us to very, very quickly on board a collection of pastas, pasta sauce, olive oils, gourmet groceries. So we're in the gourmet grocery game now. But the thing is, then we found that people are wanting to do this, parang ganito, para inuman, they can be together, may social distancing, bawal pasok sa kainan. So, we realized this, people want to buy a pack, and then we launched the inuman pack. So inuman pack is like, a bottle of wine, kasama siya yung hamon, saka yung manchego, mga pika-pika. And we're like, we'll sell the inuman pack, and we put it all in one of these. The WineryPH shipper, right?
Yeah, nice. It has a nice
box. We put the wine and we could just send that to people's house. So we started doing that, and then like virtual wine tastings come up, and we just send it to all the people joining the tasting, and then so it was kind of a good move to go into the groceries as well, because
nice box, huh? Nice box, nice.
Yeah. The only thing is, people say like sayang yung box, like can I return it? So we're looking at, we want to start a box return. Like if you have 5 boxes, then like we'll pick it up and use them again, because
recycle. Yeah, good idea.
Like box recycling. Yeah, give a voucher or something to to thank people for returning the boxes, because they cost like I think 25 pesos. Is that the big one? Yeah. So we want to get them back. So anyway, that's sort of kind of pushed us into grocery, and now we're, I guess, trying to be the store for, if you're a wine drinker, kind of everything you need to live the good life. That's what we're selling, everything the wine drinker needs to live the good life.
All right, that's good.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to our last one. What's our last?
Okay, so we have gone from Australia to Spain. We now go to France, and
so we're ending with France.
Yes, I might have a problem, Anton. I don't think I have a corkscrew with me. Do you have a corkscrew with you?
Of course, I have. You want to borrow?
I might have a problem, and all of my staff left me. I'm the only one back in the office tonight. They all went home, and I normally have one in my office, but I actually had to lend my corkscrew at home to a guy who was in quarantine. So one of our customers was in quarantine here in Makati, and he got a wine shipment, and he's like, "Oh no, I need a wine opener." And he asked the hotel; they wouldn't give him the bottle opener, because they said bawal yung alak in quarantine. And he said, "But I mean,
really?
you let me." Well, I don't know. I mean, you're in like locked in a room for 2 weeks. I mean, come on, right? I mean, what are you going to do if you have a bottle of wine? So they let him receive a case of wine, but then they wouldn't give him a corkscrew to open the bottles. And so it's just around the corner from my place. So I went there, and I had to smuggle my corkscrew. I folded it in a newspaper with a couple of books. And they said, "Oh, I'm just dropping off some reading material." I'm not making this up. And then I text him saying, "It's inside the newspaper. They're going to bring it up." So he got the corkscrew, and that's where my corkscrew is. It's in quarantine right now. And he sent me a photo. He's able to open all of his wines now. And then the corkscrew in the office I had to take back to my house to replace my corkscrew, which is in quarantine. So I'm in a bind here. I'm actually not sure I can open the 3rd bottle, which is very embarrassing because we're on a live stream.
It's okay. So maybe you can talk me through it.
So I will
show the brand.
Yeah, I knew we had forgotten something. And because I'm an Australian, we're all on the screw cap. right?
I know. Yeah.
And it's
The
so
French.
easy.
Yeah, it's so
You don't need
easy.
a
Yeah.
corkscrew.
So
But the
can
French,
you let's talk about this wine. What is this wine
yeah.
about?
Okay, well, so the good thing is I tasted it last week, so
Mhm.
I think I can tell you enough about it. We were tasting it for the sale, and what we have here is it's got a very long, fancy name. I don't know if I should try and pronounce that, being in Australian, but I think we'd say a Chapoutier Crozet Hermitage Petit Rouge 2015.
Mhm.
If you're French and you want to critique my accent, go ahead. And this is Rhone Valley, which is in the south of France. It's mostly known for the Shiraz grape, or it says their grape
Mhm.
variety Syrah. It's a 2015 vintage, so it's been aged for 6 years, which is just a good age. Generally, Shiraz, better to give it 5 years
Mhm.
before you drink it. So this will be drinking really, really, really well. Now, have you got some in your glass? Why don't you try and show us the color, Anton? I'll try and diagnose this from afar.
Yeah. So
So
what
this should
color
be
is
sort of. I'm going to say it looks towards garnet as well. It's quite reddish, right? Some Shiraz can be more on the purple side. This looks towards the red end of the spectrum, maybe even dark garnet. It looks darker than the Tempranillo
yeah,
Syrah that
darker.
we just had. So it's I would say it looks like a dark garnet.
Mhm.
And then I have actually the notes. I tried this a couple of days ago. Anyway,
Mhm.
um, so when we
So
looked at it,
what should it smell like?
so when we tried it, we got like a raspberry. If you've had raspberries
Raspberry.
before,
Mhm.
and pepper were the kind of the pronounced fruits we saw. And then quite a smooth wine, well balanced. And this wine, Chapoutier is one of the most renowned French winemakers. He's a strong brand name. Actually, he makes wine in Australia and France. Um, some people are like they're really good at growing grapes, and some people are really good at making wine. And this winemaker Chapoutier is in the category of really good at making wine, and he can pick grapes from different areas to make those wines. Um, the sort of things you'd pair with it, because this will be a little bit more what we
Yeah.
call full body, like a bit more powerful than the previous wine, like a bit more like oomph,
Yum.
para
Nice.
malakas yung katawan,
Oh, laki.
we would say, or not katawan, that's too literal, like parang mabuo sa bibig, maybe is the Philippine way, like full.
Yeah. Oh, full. Yeah.
Yeah, like robust in your palate. So red fruits, raspberry, pepper, and then quite a smooth wine. It's the sort of thing that you would want to pair with, maybe not like a big steak, but like a hanger steak,
Mhm.
or a flat iron. A grass-fed steak, not like the USDA ribeye, marble tan Wagyu 15 type
Mhm.
steak, more like a simple lean, a tenderloin would be nice. Or you would go to lamb and do like a rack of lamb, lamb chop would be really good with it as well. But it needs quite a flavorful meat.
Mhm.
Could also do like a stew, because Shiraz is a very, very rich and
It's two.
fruity. So
Mhm.
caldereta would be challenging. I think if Philippine stews, or menudo, because it's got those flecks, of gherkin, or menudo with the raisins, that might spike the flavor of the wine a little bit. But think like ossobuco.
Also, buko. This
Yeah,
would.
like with the strong tomato stew around it, and a beef shank, slow cooked beef shank with those rich, slowly cooked fatty flavors coming through it. Yeah, that would be a good
Mhm.
option as well.
Okay. Now, I have a question for you. So,
Mm.
for in winery.ph, what were the wine insights you have on Filipinos? Meaning, did it
Oh,
grew over time, and what do Filipinos like over time?
so we did. So it's quite interesting. because we represent so many of the importers now, we actually have really, really interesting data into what Filipinos are buying. And, instead of it's like, in the past, or the critics or the importers, they tell you what you have to drink. And then we're like, we don't care what you drink what you want. And I think that's more interesting because our data is what people are really buying, with their wallet. That's the best sign of what's drinking and what's not. So, we actually do a ranking now at the end of each year called the Cavino Choice. All of our customers are our Cavinos. And we're actually starting to rank those top wines and actually give them an award. So if you go to Winery.PH, you'll see there's certain bottles that have this little medal saying Cavino Choice Winner 2020.
Okay.
And it's not rigged. It's not, everything in the Philippines is rigged, right? Like beauty pageant, rigged. Lotto, rigged. Wedding, rigged. Election, no comment, right? I'm not allowed to have a view on that. But, but our Cavino Choice Award is not rigged. It's actually just based on the sales data. So what we were finding was, I think there is a preference for, Spain, USA, France, Australia. But in the value segments, wine between like 500 and 1,000, it's heavily Spain, Australia, USA.
So that's the range.
Yeah, in terms of countries, let's say those are the big ones. The type of wines, I wouldn't say it's like the, Napa Valley Cabernets are in there, those big wines, but a lot of the top wines that we gave the awards to were sort of your Spanish reds, like this kind of the second wine, not the third one.
The Tempranillo.
The Tempranillo Syrah, like whether they're Rioja wines, Spanish reds. Some of the French reds, it was more like a Malbec. Did quite well, French Malbecs.
Yeah.
And then Australian Shiraz and a bit of USA Cabernet Sauvignon. The Napa Valley, it's got a real cachet still. But we do think that there is a Philippine palate, maybe not like still a fruity wine, but not necessarily a really huge, powerful wine. So sort of a medium full, but with good fruit. There does seem to be a bias towards that. In the white wines, Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay are the varieties doing the most. And usually, USA, Australia, France, and then for the Sauvignon Blanc, it's New Zealand has always been very popular for the Sauvignon Blancs.
Yeah.
So I guess in those, it feels a little bit like what you'd expect. But I actually think as the market develops here, we'll start to see the Philippine palate emerge more, particularly now that, there's online is meaning that the consumer can decide what he wants instead of kind of going to the supermarket and, how do you know what the Philippine palate is if you only give him a certain type of wine?
Yeah.
He doesn't have a choice. He's not really expressing it because that's all there is on the shelves.
That's all available. Now, no. So follow-up question on that, because people think that Filipinos just like sweet wines. What happened with that? Are still a lot of Filipinos liking sweet wines or not?
I would say yes, but I think it's evolving. And here's the thing, like usually with wine, people when they first come to it, they often start in the sweet wine. It's like the gateway drug. Because hindi ba sila sanay, and particularly if you're used to drinking beer or like long hard cocktail drinks, and then you try wine and you're like, oh, it's like lacking. It's not as flavorful. And if you drink soft drink regularly, it's just not as sweet as Coke. So if that's what you're used to drinking and you come to wine, you're always going to have that preference for sweet wine because anything less than sweet, you'll feel a bit like, parang bitin nito, like parang walang lasa nito.
Oh, yes.
And then most people in their wine journey, they'll start sweet, and then the more they drink wine, the more they go, oh, this is a little bit too sweet. And they start to move down like to less and less sweet styles as their palate develops because the sugar tends to obscure yung iba't ibang mga lasa sa wine. So when you really start getting into it, you're like, all I can taste is sugar. So that's how experienced wine drinkers feel. So I think the Philippines is just on, I would say, almost a typical spectrum that, even in Australia or the US, I mean, college kids getting into wine are typically going to drink sweeter stuff.
And now, a follow-up question though. Before pandemic, of course, the preference for wine are influenced by what's available in groceries or what's available in the restaurants. But throughout the pandemic, that's not available. So, what are the influences for wines for Filipinos, especially during this time?
I mean, from where we sit, I think we're one of the influences of what people are drinking, and we're trying to, unearth, new styles and help people with discovery, and help them to try new products. One of the ways we're doing it is sort of we do our regular sales, we do these clearances, but every week we run a deal that's like 30 to 40% off. And that's partly about, hey, this importer, he's got a bit too much stock and he needs to sell it down. But it's also about exposing our customers to new products all the time and saying, here's a kind of like a cheap opportunity to try something different instead of just always buying the one So I think that's been a driver for people to try new things. But probably also just that, we're shifting from this like supermarket controlled. We have the standard. We have the Yellowtail. We have the Jacob's Creek. We have the Moet products. The standard. It's like, and you can find these in a store anywhere in the world. The same like 20 wines will be everywhere.
Yeah.
I think Behringer's there. Yeah, the Jacob's Creek Yellowtail. That it's kind of like what we call a commodified.
Yes.
And they're not bad wine. I mean, they deliver. They're available. They get you drunk if that's your purpose. They're okay, but they're made for like a very standard quality. So I mean, I'm actually not rubbishing them or saying that they're not good. I'm saying they're made to be globally standard. And when you make wine like that, it's really hard for the wine to also be interesting. That's what I would say about it in a very fair way. Like it's made to be a certain product. They're producing like gazillions of bottles. And it's hard to do that scale without the wine being a little bit, maybe standardized.
Low quality.
So really, I think that the online revolution that's happening, it's going to expose Filipinos to this much greater set of choice. Because the supermarket, I mean, in fairness to the supermarket, how much space can he dedicate to the wine section, right? He might only have room for 100 or 200. And if he has to kind of give space to people who just want that brand name wine, how much space does he really have for variety? Whereas dito sa online, I mean, meron akong warehouse, and yeah, I've got it stocked in the warehouse, but hindi masyado magastos yun. I mean, I could be in Parañaque, I could be in Cavite, I could be in Rizal with that warehouse, right? I'm not paying for Glorieta 4 foot traffic around the product, so we can house a lot more range. So I think that's what I would say is what's changing is that it's going to be up to the Filipino now to really explore and decide, because the availability has really, really increased as a result of online.
Which is very good. Yeah. What do you think? I know we have to close this live stream, but I have last two questions for you. What do you think of wine versus whiskey and the gin here in the Philippines? Because Filipinos we're the largest gin drinking country in the world, no? And of course a lot of people also drink whiskey. What do you think of that dynamic versus the wine that you guys champion?
Well, I mean, first, Anton, I might have been the biggest consumer of gin in the Philippines during the ECQ. I think we got through 7 liters in 6 weeks in my household, and that was on top of the wine. When the ECQ first happened, and everyone was just like, "What do I do? Make another gin and tonic?" We just had one every night, sometimes 2, and it just evaporated. So look, they're not mutually exclusive, and actually most wine drinkers, I think beer drinkers drink 80% beer and a little bit of wine and spirits, and spirits drinkers drink 80% spirits and a little bit of wine and beer, and wine drinkers drink mostly wine and a little bit of beer and spirits. So we all, it's not like you're just loyal to one only. But wine drinkers, I think, tend to mostly drink gin and whiskey. And I think the reason for that is that the wine drinker is someone who's very passionate about anong dami ng mga layer ng flavor, what's interesting about this.
Yes.
So if you're a wine drinker who's going to spirits, what are you looking for? Well, gin, because there's this extraordinary variety of flavors in the gins that come from the distillation process. And yung paggamit ng mga botanicals or yung mga iba't ibang mga tanim, yung bulaklak, yung mga buto that you're putting into the distillation. So that makes gin, even for me, very interesting. And then on top of that, I'm always like, okay, I've got a little bit of basil in my rooftop. I've got some, some dill, because I grow some herbs on my rooftop. So I'm always putting in the fresh herbs, a little calamansi from my calamansi tree. So you can also flavor your gin. So actually for wine drinkers, gin and tonics are very popular. And I think whiskey, what's happening is it's less about the distillation process and more about the aging in different types of barrels. So, they use often like a sherry cask. They're often using wine casks to store the whiskey and to impart that complexity of flavor. So for me, I don't see the categories as mutually exclusive. But if you are primarily a wine drinker, then you almost always end up gin and tonic is your aperitif, aperitivo afternoon drink, and you finish on scotch, and everything in between is wine. And I find that with a lot of wine drinkers, they like to finish on a scotch and they like to start with a G&T.
All right, correct. Very interesting. So last question: would you do a Gary V type of YouTube videos for Christ Urbano or not?
Well, I don't know how much of my commercial strategy I should reveal tonight, Anton. We don't know who's watching, but look, so Gary V, right? I've seen his early stuff. I think he saw the wine online opportunity in the US. Back in 2005, his parents had a wine business, wine library, and he really was one of the pioneers of putting that online. And hey, look, it's 15 years later. And probably the time is right in the Philippines, and look, some of the guys out there are starting to experiment with a bit of video. We're doing a bit of video ourselves, but it tends to be more like this wine supplier from the US is going to make a YouTube video, and it's pretty flat. It's like industry information made available on video format. And I do think that there's something missing in the Philippines, that we need to make this sort of wine knowledge available where people are, which frankly is not television, and it's not radio, and it's not the newspaper. It's on their cell phones and on their their televisions at home, on smart TVs, or their computers, or on their commute. So I do think we need to make this information available in the format customers want, and I think we also have to make it relevant. And I don't want to get too theoretical here, but we need to contextualize itong mga wine information. What is relevant to the Philippine wine consumer? Because, like I said, if you never taste a blackberry before, and I tell you this tastes like blackberry, you go, doesn't mean anything to me. Or you say, keep your wine at cellar temperature, right? What is cellar temperature to a Filipino?
What's that cellar?
In France, it's 15 to 18 degrees, so, something. And here in the Philippines, it's like, wala kong cellar. Like, what? My cellar depot. Like, do I set my air conditioner to that temperature? I mean, the aircon only goes down to 18, right? And magastos yun. I mean, how much is it going to cost you to keep your wine at 15 degrees in this country? So it's kind of like that, a lot of that information is just kind of a bit silly, really, for the Filipino who lives in a condominium, maybe has an air conditioner and a small pantry to put his wine, and you're saying, go down to your wine cellar. So that's what I mean when I say, contextualize and give that sort of advice and knowledge that is both relevant, contextualized, and also engaging, relatable for the Philippine wine drinker, right? Let's not talk down to them like, oh, you don't have a cellar, so you don't deserve to drink wine. I view the Filipino is worthy of good wine. We just have to make it available to him, and help him drink it in his condominium, with no cellar and no idea what blackberry is. So that's
wow. Congratulations, Again, congratulations to WineryPH. I know we should have closed this live stream earlier, but thank you for sharing all your knowledge. I'm really interested in wine. But before the pandemic, it was all restaurants controlled. And now, after the pandemic, it's e-commerce controlled, and it's good to have this interesting knowledge sharing with you. And I think the Philippines will really just love wines moving forward. So maybe let's close this. If you can talk to people interested with wines, and invite them to the clearance sale next week. No? Yeah,
sure. So if you're still watching, congratulations for reaching the end of the of the live stream, and head over to Winery.PH. We will, there's a sale on just about every week where you can get a great deal, but the one we're really excited about, as Anton says, we're running the biggest wine clearance sales in the Philippines. We sell millions of pesos in 24 hours of wine. This is going to be the biggest one we've done. There's going to be 20 unique deals and everything, 45 to 57% off, which is amazing. No wine will disappoint. We've tasted all of them ourselves. We tasted 3 of them here tonight. Anton didn't, reject any of them, so I assume that they passed his test. So yeah, grab yourself a deal, check out Winery, and look forward to welcome you as our next Cavino. Because of Winery.PH. So have a good night, everyone. Thanks for having us. And good night. Magandang gabi sa inyo
Good
lahat.
night, yeah. I actually like this one. This one would go well with food, as you would say.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
my wife likes of course.
Likes the white.
White wine. Yeah.
Well, you'll be able to pick up a 6-pack of each in the sale, Anton. I'm going to hold you to that. But if I don't see your order, I'm going to call you up. And you're like, it's there, it's on sale. Yeah, get in before we stock out.
To stock out. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chris. And thank you guys for watching until the end of this video. Bye-bye.
All right. Good night.